Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming to This Is My Brave. I'm Christina Cespedes, and I'm one of the student producers for this show.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kaylee Skolnick, and I'm also a student producer of This Is My Brave. This show aims to raise awareness about mental issues and mental illness and stop the stigma surrounding it by sharing individual stories of people who have overcome and had successful lives despite their hardships. We're really excited to have so many inspiring performers today.
As many of you know, for the IB Diploma program, you must do a CAST project in order to receive the diploma. Michaela and I, along with Kaylee Skolnick and Rebecca Perez, decided to choose something that was extremely important to us to do our project on. Mental illnesses are very prevalent in our society today. However, many tend to overlook the seriousness of mental health. We wanted to change that. I know for me personally, I have very bad anxiety and depression, and I know how it feels to not be able to eat or get out of bed, but I also know that there's a lot of hope. Raising awareness at our school is very important to me, as mental illness is a daily struggle in my life, and I want others to understand how important it is to help others and bring positivity into others' lives rather than negativity.
I was very excited when I was approached to help produce This Is My Brave. Mental health is very important to me because I know what it is like to suffer in silence. People tend to believe that mental illness has a look, and to others, this is a look that I never had. But that didn't mean I wasn't suffering, and it doesn't mean that I don't continue to suffer as a result of my past eating disorders every single day. I want to raise awareness to the fact that mental illness such as depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar disorder, substance abuse, and eating disorders do not have a face, and anyone can be affected. We want students at our school to realize that there is hope and that having a mental illness does not make you crazy. And we ask that anyone who knows someone suffering from mental illness or is suffering from mental illness themselves reach out.
Suicide is the second leading cause of death for ages 10 to 12. Suicide is the second leading cause of death for college-age youth and ages 12 to 18. And more teenagers and young adults die from suicide than from cancer, heart disease, AIDS, birth defects, stroke, pneumonia, influenza, and chronic lung disease combined. Each day in our nation, there are an average of over 5,240 attempts by young people, grades 7 through 12. And 4 out of 5 teens who attempt suicide have given clear warning signs. The Youth Risk Behavioral Surveillance System is a survey conducted by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The purpose is to monitor priority health risk behaviors to contribute to the leading cause of death, disability, and social problems among the youth in the United States. But yeah, we just want you guys to know that suicide is preventable and that we want anyone who feels like they are struggling to reach out and find help. But without further ado, our first performer today is Dick Miller. He was born August 26, 1944. He has a Bachelor's of Science from the University of Maryland. He currently lives in Germantown, Maryland with Bonnie, his wife of 48 years. He has 1 daughter and 3 granddaughters. His hobbies include walking 8 miles a day, and he loves music. He enjoys playing the guitar and writing songs, and he also plays the ukulele and harmonica. Previously, he worked for Washington Gas Light for 30 years. Currently, he works as a paraeducator here at Seneca Valley High School and is the Best Buddy staff sponsor. Today, he will perform his song, Love Don't Hate, with some of the Best Buddy students.
A young girl walked down the hall of a bus. She was a step and got to the entrance of the bus and walked down the steps. She met her mom and she exploded in her arms. And Mom said, "What's wrong, child?" She said, "The kids on the bus called me a terrible name." That was so sad. A young girl, excited as she got dressed for school. She was excited because her grandfather sent her a hat that he wore in Vietnam. She put on the hat, adjusted it, and then whispered, "Granddaddy, I love you." She started on her way to school, and as she walked, she encountered 5 older kids. They immediately started teasing her. They grabbed a hat, and one of them laughed, and they threw it in a nearby creek, and they laughed as it floated down the creek. That was so mean.
Why do we hate? Why can't we love? It's so much easier to love one another than to hate each other. See what a difference love can make. See what a difference love can make.
Young girl got up as the bus approached her bus stop. She walked down the aisle and gave hand slaps to her friends that were sitting in the outside seats. She jumped off the bus into the arms of her mom, and her mom said, "Child, why are you so happy?" She said, "The people on the bus told me how beautiful I look today." That was so nice. The young girl excited as she got dressed for school. She was excited because her granddaddy sent her the hat that he got in Vietnam. She put on the hat and adjusted it and sort of whispered, "Granddaddy, I love you." She started on her way to school, and as she walked, she encountered 5 older kids. They loved the hat, and they asked, "Is that your granddaddy's?" And she said, "Yes." And they said, "Was he in Vietnam?" She said, "Yes." The kid said, "Then God bless you, and God bless your granddaddy." That was so nice.
Why do we hate? Why can't we love? It's so much easier to love one another than to hate each other. See what a difference love can make. See what a difference love can make.
You all did good.
Our next performer is Yoleni Canton. Yoleni is a high school senior at Seneca Valley High School. She will be attending Coastal Carolina University in the fall as a marine science major. Her favorite animal is a whale shark. She loves to play piano, guitar, ukulele, and sing. She'd like to give a shout out to her family and boyfriend for helping her out and being there for her. She'd also like to thank all of the teachers here supporting her, especially Miss Awano, for making her aware of this great opportunity to perform in This Is My Brave. Yoleni has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. She is reading her essay entitled Comfort.
Comfort. I found comfort in the blood from the cuts I carved into my skin. When you get a paper cut, it stings and burns. You say, "Darn it, ouch." You'll forgive yourself because it was an accident. But cutting yourself on purpose, you won't forgive yourself. At least not then. It'll take years. I'm not at years yet. I'm only at 1. I found comfort in the voices in my head. I used to rather hear what they had to say than listen to others' bone-rattling words, or worse, my own thoughts. I wrote a poem about the voices once. In one line, I wrote that I couldn't wait for the person that made them listen. I found comfort in the many mental hospital visits I had. The staff listened to me when I talked. I had the breathing of a roommate to listen to instead of my legs shaking on the bed or tapping against the wall or the voices in my head. I found comfort in the way I pulled out my hair. I could hear the moment when the hair was finally out of my head. I kept this a secret just like I kept my mental illness a secret. When I finally had the nerve to tell someone, I said, "Did you know there's a name for when someone pulls out their hair?" They responded sarcastically, "Yeah, it's called not doing it." I found comfort in the fake attention I got from people. I searched for so long for someone who would listen, someone who cared about what I had to say, but I could never find them. I found comfort in the secret of my mental illness, because then I could pretend it wasn't real, that maybe I was making it up. Sometimes I still think I'm making it up. Sometimes I think I play into my diagnosis, that I fake being super hyper or super sad only because that's what fulfills a bipolar type 2 diagnosis. I found comfort in the shaking of my hand or legs due to my anxiety and panic attacks. I would wake up into a panic attack. I still do. I'd say it happens more now than it did then. I would shake and shake, but at the same time I could not move. I couldn't ask for help, and no one that I could text or call was awake. I now find comfort in the scars I have. I know it seems weird, but it shows me that I survived something. I read a quote once that said, "You got through everything you didn't think you were strong enough for." And it's true. But there are many days where I can't stand my scars, or put on a short sleeve shirt in the morning and then decide to change into long sleeves because looking at them brings all the memories back. I now find comfort in my own thoughts. They aren't always positive, but I don't plan out 3 different scenarios of how I could kill myself. I think simple things, like what I'm going to eat, because I eat more often now, how I'm going to respond to a text message, and if my room is clean. People take silence for granted, because when you hear voices, others may hear nothing, but you hear everything. And also, I found someone that makes them listen. The voices officially stopped March 30th, 2016. I now find comfort in my room. It's not as scary as it used to be. I have a giant teddy bear to cuddle with, courtesy of my boyfriend, and positive quotes on the wall that I can read when I think I can't get through whatever I'm going through. I now find comfort in the fact that I notice when I pull out my hair and can stop myself by playing with one of my many fidget toys, also courtesy of my boyfriend and mom. I don't keep my mental illness a secret anymore. In fact, I embrace it. Did you know Beethoven suffered from bipolar disorder? I used to want to be like Beethoven, but I don't think I meant like this. I now find comfort in the real attention I get from others. I have parents that try to help me out and force me to go to school on my bad days. I know I seem to not appreciate this, but Mom, Dad, I truly do. Because sometimes going to school will turn those bad days into good ones. I have a loving boyfriend that is always there when I need him, and parents who try as hard as possible to support me. I now find comfort in expressing myself, in the words I not only write, but share. I mean, if I didn't share my work, I wouldn't be here today. I now find comfort in the many fidget toys I have. They keep me calm. They remind me of those who gave the toys to me, and how I have support. Now when I wake up from a nightmare or wake up into a panic attack, I have someone to call or text, even when he's sleeping. Thanks, Tyler. When I'm at my low points, I remember I'm not going through this alone, and neither are you. Not just because of family and friends, but because there are others out there with the same diagnosis. And although they experience it differently, I know they went through things they never thought they'd get through, just like I did.
Our next performer is Michael Lyles. He is a senior at Seneca Valley High School, and he plays for the varsity baseball team. Michael enjoys spending time with friends and going on random adventures. Mental illness has had a major impact in his life and has affected him still to this day. He wants to be a part of This Is My Brave to spread awareness about mental illness because a lot of people go through it and no one will ever know because they're embarrassed or too scared to speak out. His friends and family have a huge part in him staying mentally healthy. Another part of his life that helps him stay mentally healthy is his team and the sport of baseball. He hopes at the end of the show the audience sees that it is okay to have a mental illness and they aren't alone because a lot of people can help you and you have to be strong and speak up.
This on this side? Good evening. I'm just going to talk about like a time in my life where I thought I hit rock bottom. I titled it Obstacles. So it was just another day of spring. I was 8 years old, and it was a beautiful Saturday morning. My mom woke up and told me we were going to a party. I was ecstatic and couldn't wait because who doesn't love parties? When you think of everything good, like parties, you think of fun, family, and good vibes. Friends and families were there, the music was playing, and games were being played. I still remember the sound of the tennis ball hitting the back of the building, and then the sound stopped. I looked at my friend, and he repeatedly was saying, "I threw it over the building, I threw it over the building." We're both very competitive people, so we decided each of us would run around the building on different sides to see who would get it first. I took the right side and he took the left. He shouted, "Ready, set, go," and then we took off. I had him beat for a little bit, and then I saw a neon ball in the grass. I dove on it and looked at the view in front of me. It was a beautiful sight. I see adults talking all over the place, the music getting louder, and everything was so good. I forgot about the wall ball game because of what I was noticing, because it was all the adults, and then when I stood up, everything changed. Bang, bang, bang. I jumped a foot. I've never heard that type of sound up close before. I look in the sky because I thought they were firecrackers, but then I slowly look down and see a body on the ground. I was 8 years old, and I had just witnessed a murder. Blood was everywhere, and everything that I described at the party had stopped in my mind. I couldn't hear the music, I dropped the tennis ball, and I just saw one thing, the body. He was lying there so still. I was a witness to something no one should ever see in their life, and honestly, that's the first time in my life where I felt helpless. I didn't know what to do, who to call, or how to act. My body went into shock. By now, I watched the murderer get into his car and leave. I was telling my body to run, to find my mom, or to do anything, but I couldn't find it in me. People were screaming my name and trying to talk to me, but I never processed what they were saying. I not only felt helpless, but I also felt alone. Over time, the pain and memories would go away, or I could try so hard to forget about them, but that would never work. I used to deny that something was wrong with me. I tried to act like I was unaffected by the situation, but I was. I had to come to terms with myself, but eventually I was able to accept that I had been suffering from PTSD. At first, it was hard to deal with in my head, but now it occurs less. I try to keep myself busy so I don't have to think about the things that come up in my head, because sometimes they do. It can be anything unexpected, like a car horn or a teacher dropping a textbook, anything to cause a loud bang, small things. It's that easy to trigger it. I'll get upset or very anxious when it gets triggered and I can't help it. I just have to control my actions when it happens. But that's honestly what it's about. You have to be able to self-control yourself when you experience the variety of emotions. Of course, this is way easier said than done, but it takes time. It's truly a process. You have to put effort to be able to work through and conquer your PTSD. In my life, I look at major events that were difficult as obstacles, and one day I'll be able to look back on this and see it as an obstacle.
Our next performer is Sabrina Mathis. Sabrina is a youth peer specialist in Prince George's County, Maryland. She is also a stylist on the side. She originated from West Virginia but was raised in the DMV area. She's a survivor of abuse and was diagnosed with PTSD and major depression. She knows what it feels like dealing with mental health and trauma. That is why she loves working with youth and in the peer support world. She's been working in peer support and youth voice for almost 4 years. She is grateful and excited to see what comes next in her journey.
Hello. I will be saying a poem that I wrote, and it's called The Effects of PTSD. I am a survivor, keeper of the truth. I give voice to the unspeakable, and I stand on as a living proof. Proof that I can make it only if I try. I step on wings of faith, confident that I can fly. I speak what I feel. I shout out what I know. I live my life determined to be free. I let freedom seeds grow. When you can't stop crying, when you can't stop looking back while you're walking, when the suicidal thoughts, they just keep on talking, when you walk with flashbacks, the memories that you can't take back, when post-traumatic stress interrupts you in class, when the stigma scared you so bad, I was afraid to speak about what I had. I am a warrior. You are a warrior. You gotta have thicker skin. But I'm sorry, I can't. I'm tired of holding it in. People will never understand how depression and suicide had dragged me down. Even now, anxiety is pounding me right now. If you only knew how much he affected me now, flashbacks, memories, I guess that is the side effect of PTSD. Thank you.
Next up, we have Christopher Bennett. Chris is an entrepreneur and an addiction professional who has devoted his life to helping those suffering from substance abuse and co-occurring mental health disorders. In long-term recovery since his early 20s, Chris's ability to relate to, connect with, and empathize with clients and their families is invaluable. Chris is the founder of Chris Bennett Interventions and Chris Burrow Foundation and Encore Recovery Solutions, a variety of behavioral health treatment companies, both private and nonprofit, striving to improve mental health and wellness across the U.S.
Hello, everyone. I gotta say, it's pretty amazing to stand up here on a stage with such powerful and courageous people. Yes, long before I owned companies and ran treatment centers, I was just another kid, just like everyone else, pretty much completely terrified of the world itself and what the world held. I grew up in Northern Virginia in a very normal family for the most part, mom and dad around, both educated, both supportive, took care of me and my sister very well. And from a very young age, I can remember, as far back as I can remember, I never felt comfortable in my own skin. And what I've come to learn over the years is that was really a combination of anxiety and general anxiety around most every situation that I ran into, as well as ADHD. I had a very, very tough time in traditional classrooms and academic environments growing up. So although I could do very well academically, I struggle with a lot of things like they like to call self-control and being a good classmate and a lot of these other things. And what happened to me was as a result of feeling this way for so long, as you know, we've heard so far this evening, I had to cope some way with the way I felt. And being a professional and for nearly a decade working in behavioral health care and addictive disorders, what we find is that people deal with the way that they feel on a spectrum, and some are positive ways and some are not so positive. And we are all, as human beings, going to deal with pain, and we're going to do that in a variety of different ways. And the way I dealt with pain from what I was experiencing in the world is I turned to substance use. And so by the time I got to high school, I had already begun experimentation with smoking weed, drinking. Very quickly that began to transpire into more dangerous types of drugs like cocaine and benzodiazepines like Xanax. And eventually where all of this led me was a really strong downward spiral into opiate addiction and heroin use. And so I went from a talented athlete, an excellent student, and a great family, in a great part of Northern Virginia, to being a poster child for basically what you don't want your kid to look like, at least on the outside. My parents were ostracized in a lot of our community we grew up in because they must have been absolutely terrible parents, because I was obviously a reflection upon them. And I think that's what we see a lot today, is that parents all too often are looked at and said, well, what did the parents do wrong? And I think that's at least a lot of the communities I work with in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, the struggle families have being able to reach out for support is because of the stigma that comes along with mental health and substance use. And you know, my parents, I was lucky enough to have parents who tried everything they possibly could to help me. They sent me to treatment centers, to military schools, to treatment programs, outpatient, inpatient, psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, all this. And they really did everything they possibly could to help me. And I know we're here tonight not only with an audience full of young people, but also parents. And I think a lot of my message to parents is really that what's going on with your children potentially needs to be talked about. There's the need for support with the families. And I think the one way we can do that is by the community really coming together and supporting each other in that. So I stand here proudly today saying I've lived with mental illness for 32 years. I don't discriminate between a substance use disorder and anxiety, for example. It's all a mental illness. And so what happened to me is similar to some of the stories that we've heard this evening. I became so hopeless and helpless with the ability to control my use of drugs that I finally had to reach out for help. I had been suicidal for many years, and the way that I used substances was to medicate the way that I felt. And so although I could have turned to some more healthy coping strategies at those times in my life, I was fairly incapable of doing so. And so I turned to some people. I got the help that I needed, not only from friends, from family, but the community. And I was able to get sober. And, you know, the interesting thing is getting sober is the very beginning, because we talk about I was using drugs for a reason. And so a lot of times the problems start when the people stop using drugs. And I tell families and young people all the time, drugs aren't really the problem. They're actually the solution to the way that someone's feeling. And so when you remove that solution, how do you replace it? So, you know, a lot of my story is learning to cope and to live with ongoing anxiety. It's to learn to live with the fact that I don't operate very well in traditional type of academic settings. And so I actually never did very well in school because I actually just couldn't go to class and I couldn't focus in class. And now even today, people laugh at me at the office because I have boxes of fidget toys everywhere, and I play with things all day long and in meetings, and people can't understand how I can focus and still play or listen to music and do a lot of these things that have actually really helped me to be successful today. And I think, you know, the pain we go through as human beings, and especially as young people, all too often is not talked about. And that's why I'm so honored to be a part of what This Is Brave is bringing to the table this evening, which is the idea that we can be conversation starters, that we can all, no matter where we are in life, no matter who we are, we can come together and have a conversation about mental illness. And I think that I had some conversations earlier today with some of these folks that, 15 years ago when I was in high school, there weren't things like this going on. There weren't support groups at school. There weren't the resources available like they are today. And I feel absolutely honored and blessed to be a part of opening and having these conversations in communities across the country, and really, really helping to push everyone, who's sitting here today that, if you are in a position of struggling, that if you know someone who's in a position of struggling, that reaching out and asking for help is not something weak to do. And I think all too often as well, from the way that males are raised, a lot of times we think we can't reach out, we can't show emotion, we can't cry, we can't do a lot of these things because it's not manly. And I think on the flip side, what it really shows is I just think it shows a lot of strength and a lot of courage that we can be true to who we are. And so I'm honored to be here this evening, and thank you to everyone else who's been here, and thanks again, Jen, and This Is My Brave. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
The next performer is Kaylee Skolnick. She is a senior at Seneca Valley High School. She was a competitive cheerleader for 11 years and did high school cheer for 3 years. She is very involved in clubs and honor societies at school and has been throughout her entire high school career. She is the oldest of 3 and takes pride in being a big sister. Mental illness has affected mostly the way she feels about herself. Her depression has made her believe that she is much less than she actually is, while her anxiety has made her overthink every decision she makes. She wanted to be a part of This Is My Brave because she thinks mental illness is such a stigma in everyday life. She believes that people blow it off as nothing, and if we don't speak up, no one will hear the issues that we have. Her main inspiration in life to stay mentally healthy are her siblings. They give her the power to wake up every day and set the example. She tries to show them what it is like to be confident as well as how to be a good person. She hopes the audience can take away the fact that mental illness can happen to anyone, all walks of earth, regardless of popularity, looks, and even how much money you have, can have mental illness.
High functioning, performing or operating at a high level. Early September 1999, the beginning of a new generation. I was the first of 3, and we are all very different in our own ways, but the big sister mentality was made for me. I was meant to be protective over them, and guess what I do every day? At the ripe age of 12, children are supposed to be growing into who they are going to be for the rest of their lives, and I am proud to say I am nothing like I was when I was 12. On the surface, you wouldn't think I'd be the one to suffer from mental illnesses, but I wouldn't be who I am without it. The way I carry myself doesn't appear to others as if I am someone who often cries myself to sleep or who often suffers from random panic attacks. The helpless feeling of not being able to breathe because you can't calm yourself down is a feeling I would never wish on another soul. It was always about what people would say and what people would think. Why would the cheer captain, who's constantly getting good grades and even has a boyfriend, be the one to feel that she is inadequate? Overanalyzation is the name of the game. It is a constant state of mind that people are lying to me just to make sure that I don't freak out. This includes the people I live with and the people I surround myself with every day. In order to distract myself, I adapted the mentality that I take care of the people around me to distract from the way I feel about myself. I avoided looking in mirrors for a very long time because that was a guarantee that I would be immersed in my own self-hatred. I became so involved in so many school activities that I would go home and immediately go to sleep, just so I wouldn't think. Thinking became my kryptonite, and I did everything I could to ignore it. But I soon came to realize that thinking was the way to recovery. For a while, it was hopeless. I told the people who cared about me most that I was a lost cause and to give up. I felt there was no need to take care of me because I'm fine. The 2 infamous words that no one ever means. But all it took was growing up and having life being thrown at me in ways I never expected in order to become the person who knew how to grow. The past year of my life has been life-changing, and I never thought I would let go of the people and the things that I've had to let go of. I've been able to accept more of who I am and cater to my own needs. Taking care of yourself is not selfish, it is necessary to survive. I came here today to tell my story and to prove that no one is who they are on the surface. Every person has their own story and something to prove in this lifetime. Positivity is a way to stay happy, but attaining positivity may be harder for some. We all have a purpose, and we are all here for a reason. The universe has a lovely way of messing with us and making sure that life isn't as easy as we think it'll be. I want to thank those who have supported me through these hectic 17 years of life. My mother, who taught me how to survive in this life while being the person that you want to be. My siblings that have given me the hope to keep going at my darkest times. My boyfriend, who supported me even when I told him not to. And the friends who have really stuck by me through the end. My mental illness used to be the only thing about me, but it was a stepping stone to who I've become. Thank you.
This upcoming performance is by DJ Lee. He is 17 years old and he goes to Sherwood High School. He is currently a sophomore since he began a year late. He lives with his parents and his younger sister. His oldest sister goes to Howard University in Washington, D.C. His hobbies include drawing, writing, reading, and exercising. Depression has caused him to lose interest in almost everything, including living. He became more grumpy and antisocial. If it was possible, he would stay in his room for most of the day. He also wondered what his purpose in life was, and if anyone would care if he committed suicide. He wanted to be part of This Is My Brave because he feels like people should see depression in a different light. It's not about being sad or tired or ungrateful about life. It's more like being in a state of hopelessness, and no matter how hard you try, it will always come back. His family inspires him, mostly because when he told his parents about committing suicide, they had tears in his eyes. He barely sees his parents like that, and it showed him that he was important in someone's life. And for the longest time, the only reason he didn't kill himself was because of his family. Also, hearing other people's stories about depression and suicide and how it affected them inspires him. These stories touch his heart and proves that he is not the only one feeling like this. He hopes that the audience learns that depression is not an emotion and should not be treated as one. Also, that it's okay for boys to have this illness and not let society shape them.
This is called solum, which is Latin for alone. I feel like no one will understand me, only if I wear a mask and play pretend, then I can relate to others. Some people think my life is simple because I'm a kid or I'm not trying hard enough. Don't hide your feelings, they said. We're here to help. But the minute I tell them my emotions, they get upset and confused. Why bother? When in the end I feel worse about myself. Maybe it's best that my words stay to me. It's a win-win situation. No one will hear my whining and whimpering, but they can be happy. Why do I have glass dreams? See-through and fragile. Perhaps human I am not, but a puppet on a lonely string. Maybe so, or these dreams reflect the real me. See through like a shadow, and how I've been the shadows for a while now. Fragile, how I'm too soft to get anything done, and how I used to run away from my problems instead of facing them. You know, if the average Joe read this, he would think I would only think about me, myself, and I. But that's not true. But then again, what would I know? I'm a guy with stupid ideas. Despite living on a planet with 7 billion people, I still feel alone. Thank you.
The next performer is Madeleine McClendon. Madeleine was born on February 29th, 2000, on Leap Day, and she has a twin. Her sister's name is Catherine, and she is her best friend. Growing up, she lived in Hawaii for 3 years, and it was one of the best times of her life. Right now, she is a junior at Seneca Valley High School. She loves to write and read poetry and has found a passionate love for photography. Her depression almost killed her, and although it has gotten better throughout the years, she is still struggling. Depression is like a cold, wet blanket that suffocates you until you're almost dead, but not quite. It holds you there and tortures you every day. It's hard to focus, it's hard to feel. It's hard to connect to the people that love and care for you. Sometimes she feels completely apathetic, and she simply makes impulsive decisions that she regrets in the future. She wants to be successful in school, but sometimes it's difficult when everything around her doesn't mean anything. She can't do her homework. She can't spend time with friends. She doesn't want to because she is so tired all the time. She doesn't mean tired like sleepy, but tired of life. She still goes through these phases, even on her medication, and other times she is genuinely happy. It's sporadic, and she can't control when the depression takes over. When she first heard about This Is My Brave, she knew she had to do it. She wants to share her story. It's been boxed up in her mind and soul, pounding to get out of her chest, and finally, it has the chance. This Is My Brave is giving her the opportunity to express what it feels like to have depression. She has never had that chance before. Knowing that she has a successful future inspires her to stay mentally healthy. Her motivation is to get good grades and get into her dream college. She has potential and so many things to do in life. She doesn't want to be unhappy living it. All she wants the audience to take away from the show is that they're not alone. They are not alone, and they do not have to be.
My piece is called Dear Diary. Dear Diary, today was the worst day of my life, the day that will define me forever. Today was the day I lost my virginity to a guy that never loved me, a guy that completely used my vulnerability to open my legs. He used my depression as an advantage to gain access to me, and it worked. He took a part of me that I would never get back. Sadly, a part of me didn't care at all, while the other part was screaming for help. One of the worst parts of all, though, was the whole school found out. My mistake was passed around like wildfire. I was that girl. Rumors were spread, and something inside me broke. I don't know what it was, but I know I can't repair it. I don't know if anybody can. Dear Diary, I can barely get out of bed anymore. It's like tar has covered my body, and I'm suffocating in this overwhelming darkness. I'm drained. It's as if something is gripping my soul and stripping me away piece by piece. How long will it take until I'm gone? Dear Diary, everything has gotten worse. Today, I was humiliated in front of my entire school. I was slut-shamed for my stupid mistake. These girls I used to call my friends have turned on me. They have plucked me raw. There are no words to possibly explain the pain they have caused me. I tried to voice my hurt to the school, but they barely listened. They didn't do anything for me. I had no justice. Dear Diary, I'm learning to live with the pain. I'm learning to live with the girls that make my life a living hell. I'm learning to deal with my depression. My therapist is helping me through, and my medication seems to be working. I can't say that I'm happy, because I know I'm not. So much has happened, and it's hard to comprehend everything. I'm fighting the best I can. Dear Diary, I've made so many mistakes I regret. I've loved and I've lost. I'm broken, but I still work. My demons are still here, but I've learned to live with them. No, I'm not entirely happy. A part of me is still miserable, but for the first time in a long while, I want to fight for my future. I'm no longer drowning in my misery. I'm above the surface and swimming to shore. No, I'm not completely rid of my demons. Yes, he's still there, lurking in the corners of my darkest thoughts, but I've become strong enough to fight back. He will not bring me to death. He will not torture me anymore. He will not remind me of my mistakes. I am in control. With my broken pieces, I've learned to mend myself with those surrounding me with love. I'm learning to piece myself together bit by bit. I'm not entirely there yet. I don't know when I will be, but I'm hopeful. My life is not yet over. I have so much to fulfill and so many happy memories to make. Dear Diary, today I'm leaving for Scotland. I never thought this day would come. In the past couple of months, I fell in love with photography. It gave me a way to cope and express my emotions. My parents found the ad on Facebook, and it talked about a student expedition with National Geographic. I would be part of a group of kids from around the world with the same love of photography. I asked if I could apply, and they said yes. I never thought my parents would let me travel without them, but they are. They are giving me this chance to experience life outside of America. They are giving me this chance to see the world through a different perspective. I can't wait to live, and I can't wait to feel alive.
Our next performance today is by Phoebe Lyle. Phoebe is a 17-year-old junior from Riverside High School in Leesburg, Virginia. She loves photography and making others happy. Phoebe lives with anxiety disorder, bipolar, and depression, and wants to encourage others to share their experiences as well.
When I was little, everyone always told me that my dreams would come true. There was one term to that statement no one mentioned to me. There I was, yet again, in my psychiatrist's office. We seemed to be going through the same routine. Mom said what was different that week. The doctor says the options. The doctor wrote a script for yet another medication. And then we left, same as every other week. We drove over to Walgreens, an almost daily occurrence at the time, and filled my new script, Seroquel. I took the pill that night and felt fine. Let me correct that, relatively fine. At the time, I was in the middle of 8th grade, and I could not sleep. I had night terrors every night, which is one of the main reasons I was supposed to start on this new medicine. The other reason was that I was anxious to the point of having panic attacks, where I could barely breathe and would be stuttering and feel like I was dying. There's a reason they're called panic attacks. This miraculous medicine was supposed to stop them too. For the first few days, nothing changed, which was to be expected, as the medicine had to get into my system. Then, the 5th morning, when I woke up, something was different. I couldn't pinpoint exactly what was different, but I was not the same. Maybe I had less night terrors that night. I thought to myself hesitantly, maybe this is a better different. Maybe the constant worry will take a break, or panic attacks will stop. Maybe we finally found the right meds, and this foreign feeling is what it's like to be normal. I was way too optimistic. I went to school that morning, and by the end of first block, I'd had 2 panic attacks, more than I'd usually had in a day at the time. Then my case manager, Miss Inquist, suggested I write in my journal, knowing that it had helped in the past. Uncharacteristically of myself, the page was filled in less than 5 minutes. Usually, it takes me at least 10 minutes to write a sentence. It was almost as if someone had taken my hand and written the words for me. I read them, and it wasn't like anything else I'd written in my journal. It was really sad and angry, and it wasn't even in my own handwriting. The scariest part was that I didn't even remember writing any of what was on the page, let alone thinking it. The voice came second block. It was the guy from the night terrors, the guy who hadn't stopped by the night before. He was whispering in my ear with his scratchy, almost drunken voice. "I've got a gun. No, this could not, no, you're not real. How could you be here?" I panicked to myself inside my head. I slowly and carefully turned around to where he should have been, directly behind my left ear. Nobody. He wasn't there. What just happened? I sat paranoid in class for the rest of the block and the last 2 blocks. I went home, and the voice came back. This time he laughed an evil snicker and told me about the matches he planned on lighting in my family's rooms. I did not sleep the entire night. Instead, I was constantly checking that the green light was on every fire alarm in our entire house, until my parents confined me to my room. I did not let my eyes off the little green dot, and I left my door open so I could smell smoke if our house did catch on fire. The next day, I went to school without any sleep, as I had to protect my house and my family. I made it through 1 block with the man's voice filling my ears, and then I saw him. He was following me down the hallway. I started to run to Miss Inquist's room, and by the time I got there, I told her what was happened. I was in tears. My mom had to pick me up, and Miss Inquist suggested I go back to school or go back to the doctor's office before I go back to school. We called the doctor. With no response from her, after multiple messages and well over a day went by, I was begging, you heard me, begging to be hospitalized. I remember 3 other distinct voices besides the man, along with having constant indistinct muttering in my mind. We finally called the emergency line for my psychiatrist. She told my parents and I, "You should have gone to the ER, not bothered me." It was at that point that we changed psychiatrists. We later found out the reasons for all the voices. First, I was experiencing withdrawal side effects from my former medication. Second, I had not been weaned onto the Seroquel. I was given the full dose, again at the doctor's advice, immediately. Third, I was given a dose that, according to my new psychiatrist, was way too high for any child. I learned on my own what I had not been told when I was younger. Dreams do come true, but nightmares can be dreams too. This experience nearly sent me over the edge. I had already been barely managing, living with bipolar, anxiety, depression, and honestly just fitting in being a teenager. This incident was my breaking point. I know that some people would think of breaking as a bad thing, as if you can't be the same afterwards. I will admit, when I broke, I was not the same. I was different, but not necessarily in a bad way. You see, breaking is similar to a starfish losing a limb. When a starfish loses a limb, it grows a new one back. Starfish doesn't have the same exact limb, but it works. It can still live, and it learned a lesson or two in the process. I am the same and a different person compared to the day I broke. I am the same kind, bubbly, unique Phoebe I was then, although I am different. Since that day, I've learned how strong and brave I truly am. Breaking does cause you to change. It hurts like hell in the moment, but more often than not, you learn how strong you are in the process of recovering.
Last but not least, we have Monique Riddick. Monique Riddick is the business administrator of a high school in Maryland. She is also the author of The Purge, Words to Live By. She is a lifelong learner and lives in the suburbs just outside of Washington, D.C. She's a successful businesswoman with a bachelor's degree in business administration and a minor in human resource management. The most important role in her life is being a mother to her 2 sons. She has struggled with depression since childhood, with an official diagnosis in high school. She continues to fight the negative stigma associated with mental illness and hopes to see a significant change in cultural attitudes. She is determined to remove the mask of shame and guilt for those affected by mental health disorders. After 25 years, she finally decided to publish some of the work created during her continuous struggles through tough life lessons while clinically depressed. The title of her poem is I Was, Now I Am.
So the students came to me and asked me if I would help them with this project. And as it's very difficult for me to say no to these students, I said yes. And so I'm opening myself up to you in this community with I was, now I am. I was a teenager. I was the most school-spirited. I was homecoming princess. I was on the pom-pom team. I was in the school musical. I was dating a really cute guy. I was wearing the latest fashions. I was driving a really nice car. I was on the honor roll. I was a leader. I was smart. I was talented. I was beautiful. I was depressed. I was perpetually sad. I was angry. I was alone. I was anxious. I was afraid. I was suicidal. I was mentally ill. I am a mother. I am a daughter. I am a grandmother. I am a sister. I am a cousin. I am an aunt. I am a niece. I am a friend. I am an educator. I am an administrator. I am successful. I am smart. I am educated. I am a leader. I am talented. I am an author. I am beautiful. I am resilient. I am worthy. I am a survivor. I am mentally ill. I was once afraid to live. Now I am living freely. And so, with that, I want to thank you all for coming out this evening, and I want to talk a little bit about the purpose of this program. This Is My Brave is an opportunity for sharing stories and saving lives. I want to acknowledge Jennifer Marshall, who is here in the audience with us tonight, who created this process. Thank you. And so the goal is to start the conversation. And in order for us to do that, we must be willing and open and able to speak freely and to help those who are struggling to have the opportunity to speak freely. There are plenty of opportunities and resources available. When we end the program tonight, we ask that you stop by the tables. We have NAMI here, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and we also have EveryMind here, representatives who can talk about what resources are available for the community, for families, for those who are suffering, for those who would like to support mental health and mental health awareness. We also ask that you reach out on social media. Go to the thisismybrave.org blog. You will see many people across the good old United States sharing their stories, telling their truths, and helping to save lives. I want to ask the cast to come and join me in front of the stage and to say thank you to them for being brave.